Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, watching the stars through the main window. His ship was 3 months into a routine mission to map new solar systems. The crew was good people. Lisa Grant handled navigation with steady hands. Tony Rodriguez kept the engines running smooth. Dr. Amy Carter studied any life forms they found along the way. Jake had been a Marine before he became a ship captain. 20 years of military service taught him to read situations fast. Now his gut was telling him something was wrong. Captain Lisa called from her station. "I'm picking up a massive energy signature. Something big just dropped out of faster-than-light travel." Jake moved to look at her screen. The object was huge, easily 10 times the size of his ship. It had the sleek design of advanced technology, nothing like human vessels. "Any response?" "To our standard greeting signals?" Jake asked. "Nothing yet, sir, but they're moving toward us." Tony looked up from his engineering console. "Captain, their energy readings are off the charts. That ship could vaporize us without breaking a sweat." Dr. Carter joined them on the bridge, her scientific equipment in hand. "This could be it. Captain, first contact with an alien species." Jake nodded but kept his expression calm. In the Marines, he had learned that how you handled the first few minutes of any encounter often decided everything that came after. The alien ship moved closer. It was beautiful in a deadly way, with smooth curves and a dark metallic surface that seemed to absorb light. Weapon ports lined its hull like rows of teeth. Captain Lisa said, her voice tight, "They're hailing us. Put them through." The main screen flickered, then showed the interior of the alien vessel. Jake had to work hard not to show surprise. The being facing them was nearly 9 feet tall, with pale blue skin that looked like crystal. 4 arms moved with fluid grace, and 3 eyes stared at them with obvious intelligence. "I am Admiral Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire," the alien said. His voice was deep and carried through the ship's speakers with perfect clarity. "You are humans, yes? From the small blue world your kind calls Earth. I'm Captain Jake Morrison." "Of the human exploration vessel New Horizon," Jake replied. "We come in peace." Admiral Vextar made a sound that might have been laughter. "Peace, how quaint. Your species' broadcasts are quite entertaining. Wars, conflicts, divisions. You cannot even unify your own small planet." Jake said nothing. Had learned long ago that sometimes the best response was to let the other guy keep talking. "We have watched your kind for some time," Vextar continued. "You are young, weak, confined to a single solar system. Most civilizations we encounter at your level of development show more promise. What exactly do you want?" Jake asked. Vextar's 3 eyes seemed to gleam. The Zephyrian Empire has brought order to 17 different species across this galaxy. We offer the same gift to humanity. What kind of gift? Simple. Your species has 2 choices. First, immediate surrender. Your governments will dissolve. Your military forces will be disbanded. Your people will serve the Empire as workers and soldiers. In return, we will permit your species to survive. Jake felt his crew tense around him. Amy's scientific equipment beeped softly as she recorded everything. Tony's hand moved closer to the weapons console, though Jake knew their small ship carried nothing that could scratch the alien vessel. "And the second choice?" Jake asked. "Complete annihilation. Your solar system will be cleansed of human life. Your planets will be given to more worthy species." The bridge fell silent, except for the soft hum of life support systems. Jake looked at the alien admiral for a long moment. Vextar clearly expected fear, begging, maybe an immediate surrender. Instead, Jake felt something else entirely. He felt sorry for them. "Admiral," Jake said finally, "you have no idea what you just did." Vextar's expression shifted slightly. "I beg your pardon? You just made the worst possible mistake any species could make." "Are you threatening me, human?" Jake shook his head. "No, Admiral, I'm trying to warn you, but I don't think you're going to listen." The aliens for arms moved in what looked like dismissal. "Your bravado is amusing but pointless. We have made this offer to 16 other species. All of them possess greater technology than yours. All of them had more unified governments. All of them chose surrender over extinction. None of them were human. What makes humans so special? Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. Lisa was calm at her station, already plotting courses back to Earth. Tony had that look he got when he was thinking about how to modify their engines for better performance. Amy was still recording, her eyes bright with the excitement of discovery, even in the face of annihilation. These were good people. But they were also something else. They were human. Admiral, humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We fought each other, we fought nature, we fought every challenge our world could throw at us. Do you know what we learned, Leighton? Me. We learned that some fights are worth having, no matter what they cost. Vexstar made that laughing sound again. Brave words from the captain of a single small ship. Admiral, you're giving humanity 30 days to surrender. Standard galactic protocol? Yes. Jake nodded slowly. Then you're going to learn something about humans that I don't think you'll enjoy. You see, the thing about my species is that we're not really good at giving up. We're much better at something else. And what is that? Finishing fights. The transmission ended as Admiral Vexstar cut the connection. The New Horizon was alone again among the stars. Orders, Captain? Lisa asked. Less. Course for Earth, best possible speed, Jake said, and send a priority message to Fleet Command. Tell them we just made first contact. What should the message say? Amy asked. Jake looked at the empty space where the alien ship had been. Tell them we're about to be invaded by a species that thinks humans are weak. Tell them to start preparing. For war? As the New Horizon turned toward home, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that Admiral Vexstar had just made the kind of mistake that ended empires. The alien had looked at humanity and seen division, conflict, and weakness. What he had missed was that all those centuries of fighting had taught humans something no other species seemed to understand. When threatened with extinction, humans didn't argue about politics or territory or resources. They just got ready to fight. President Karen Hayes stood at the head of the emergency session table in the United Nations building. World leaders filled every seat, their faces grim as they listened to the recording from Captain Morrison's ship. The alien ultimatum played. Through the speakers for the third time, 30 days, President Hayes said, when the recording ended. They're giving us 30 days to surrender or face total destruction. General Rick Barnes, head of Global Defense Command, stepped forward. With a tablet in his hand, Madam President, our analysis shows this is no bluff. The energy readings from their ship indicate weapons technology far beyond anything we possess. Prime Minister Chen of the Pacific Alliance leaned forward. What about negotiation? Perhaps we can find some middle ground. There is no middle ground, Barnes replied. They want complete surrender, or they'll wipe us out. Those are the only options they've given us. Dr. Ben Clark, a military historian from West Point, cleared his throat. If I may, there's something everyone needs to understand. About this situation? President Hayes nodded. Go ahead, Doctor. The aliens have conquered 17 other species using this same approach. They study a civilization, make contact, offer the same choice, and win without a real fight. But they've made a critical error in their assessment of humanity. What kind of error? Asked the Russian delegate. Dr. Clark activated a holographic display showing human military history. Every species they've conquered before developed beyond their warfare phase. They evolved past the need for constant conflict. Humans never did that. We've been fighting continuous wars for over 5,000 years. That's supposed to be good news? The Brazilian representative asked. In this case, yes. The aliens looked at our divided governments and constant conflicts and saw weakness. What they actually saw was the most combat-experienced species in the galaxy preparing for the fight of our lives. Admiral Susan White, who had been silent until now, stood up. Madame President, I request permission to activate the Omega Protocol. The room fell silent. The Omega Protocol was humanity's most classified military plan designed for exactly this scenario. Total global unity in the face of extinction. Granted, President Hayes said without hesitation. General Barnes activated his communicator. Military commanders, all government officials, all defense contractors, this is Omega activation. Repeat, Omega is now active. Within minutes, reports started flooding in from around the world. Military bases that had been on standby were suddenly buzzing with activity. Factories began retooling production lines. Research facilities started sharing classified information that had been kept secret for decades. Danny Kim, head of the Global Defense Research Division, joined the meeting via video link from his laboratory. Madam President, we're already seeing unprecedented cooperation between nations. The Chinese are sharing their railgun technology. The Americans are opening their nuclear arsenal data. The Europeans are providing their energy shield research. How fast can we mobilize? Admiral White asked. That's the remarkable part, Kim replied. We're seeing mobilization rates that exceed our best-case scenarios. Military enlistment centers are reporting lines around the block. Retired soldiers are coming back to service. Even civilian researchers are abandoning their projects to work on weapons development. President Hayes looked around the room. What about the civilian population? Are they panicking? General Barnes shook his head. It's the strangest part. Madam President, we expected mass panic, riots, people trying to flee the planet. Instead, we're seeing something else entirely. What? Unity. For the first time in human history, every nation on Earth has the same goal, the same enemy, the same cause. Dr. Clark pulled up another display. This is what the aliens didn't understand about human psychology. We're a tribal species. We fight each other constantly, but the moment an outside threat appears, all those tribal instincts focus on the external enemy. Colonel Pete Nash, joining from the Pentagon, added his report. Madam President, I've been coordinating with military leaders worldwide. We're seeing cooperation levels that we never achieved, even during World War III. Former enemies are now sharing intelligence and resources without hesitation. What about our defensive capabilities? Admiral White asked. Danny Kim's face lit up on the screen. Admiral, we've been working on theoretical weapon systems for decades, but we never had the global cooperation needed to build them. Now we do. I'm talking about projects that require resources from every major nation on Earth, such as kinetic orbital platforms, nuclear-powered laser arrays, relativistic missile systems. And that's just the conventional weapons. We're also developing things that no sane species would ever build. President Hayes raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Planet-killer weapons, Madam President? Devices that can crack moons, collapse stars, or create artificial black holes. The aliens think they're dealing with a primitive species. They have no idea what humans can do when we stop fighting each other and start working together. Admiral White smiled grimly. How long until we have a functional defense fleet? 18 days, Kim replied. We're taking every ship humanity has ever built and turning them into weapons. Cargo vessels are being fitted with nuclear warheads. Passenger ships are becoming troop transports. Even our space stations are being converted into weapon platforms. General Barnes looked at his reports. Colonel Nash, what's the status of ground forces? Sir, we're seeing something that military historians will study for centuries. Every major military force on Earth is working together. American Marines are training with Russian Spetsnaz. British SAS are coordinating with Chinese Special Forces. It's like watching humanity's entire military experience combine into a single fighting force. President Hayes stood up. Ladies and gentlemen, 25 days ago, humanity was divided into competing nations with different goals and conflicting interests. Today, we are one species with one mission. What mission is that? Asked the Japanese delegate. Survival, Admiral White answered. And making sure that any species that threatens humanity learns to regret that decision. Dr. Clark brought up a final display showing human military production over the past 5 days. The numbers were staggering. Madam President, the aliens gave us 30 days because every other species used that time to beg, negotiate, or surrender. Humans are using it to become the most dangerous military force in galactic history. Colonel Nash's communication device chimed. He listened for a moment, then looked up with a grin. Madam President, I just received a report from our deep space monitoring stations. The aliens are conducting surveillance of our preparations, and according to our intelligence analysis, they're starting to send confused reports back to their command. They expected us to be preparing for surrender. Instead, they're watching us prepare for total war. President Hayes looked around the room at the leaders of humanity. 23 days left. Everyone, let's make sure that when the aliens arrive, they understand exactly what kind of species they decided to threaten. As the meeting ended, reports continued flowing in from across the globe. Humanity was awakening to something it had never been before. United, focused, and very, very angry. The aliens had made their worst mistake. They had given humanity time to prepare. Admiral Susan White stood on the bridge of the battleship Liberty, watching the massive alien fleet emerge from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. 200 ships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. But Susan wasn't intimidated. She had been preparing for this moment for 28 days. Admiral Colonel Pete Nash said from his station, "Enemy fleet is assuming standard attack formation. They're moving toward Earth just like our simulations." "Predicted? Good," Susan replied. "Let them come closer." "Danny, are our special modifications ready?" Engineer Danny Kim's voice came through the communication system from the engine room. "Admiral, every ship in our fleet has been fitted with the new weapons. The aliens are in for a big surprise." Susan looked at the tactical display showing both fleets. The alien formation was beautiful, almost elegant. Ships arranged in perfect geometric patterns, moving with coordinated precision. It looked like something from a military parade. The human fleet looked nothing like that. Cargo ships flew next to military vessels. Old passenger ships had been welded together with new weapon systems. Some ships looked like they had been built in someone's garage, but Susan knew something the aliens didn't. These ugly ships were designed by a species that had been perfecting the art of war for thousands of years. "Captain Morrison," Susan called to Jake, who was commanding a squadron of converted mining vessels, "your ship's ready for the polish?" "Maneuver?" Jake's voice came back steady and confident. "Admiral, my crews are eager to show these aliens what humans do to bullies." Admiral Vextar's image appeared on the main screen, his three eyes showing complete confidence. "Human Admiral, I see you have chosen to resist rather than surrender. This is unfortunate, but not unexpected. Your fleet is impressive for such a primitive species, but you are vastly outnumbered." "Admiral Vextar," Susan replied calmly, "I have a message for you from the people of Earth. I am listening. We're not surrendering. We're not running. We're about to teach you why that was a mistake." Vextar made that sound that passed for alien laughter. "Brave words. My weapons can destroy your largest ships with a single shot. Your technology is centuries behind ours. What can you possibly do?" Susan smiled coldly. "Something you've never seen before." The first alien energy beam lanced out toward the Liberty. The crew braced for impact, but instead of the expected explosion, the beams scattered harmlessly against the ship's new armor plating. "Impossible," Vextar said, his confidence wavering slightly. "Danny Kim's special project," Susan explained. "Adaptive armor that learns from each attack. The second shot won't work either." But the humans weren't waiting for a second shot. Colonel Nash gave the signal, and the human fleet opened fire. The aliens expected energy weapons like their own. Instead, they faced something completely different. Railguns fired tungsten rods at tremendous speed. Nuclear missiles accelerated to significant fractions of light speed. Most shocking of all, some human ships fired what looked like simple chunks of metal. Those simple chunks of metal hit alien ships at relativistic speeds and tore through their hulls, like paper through cardboard. "What are these weapons?" Vextar demanded as his flagship shook under the impact of human fire. "Physics," Colonel Nash replied over the communication channel. "You focused on energy, weapons, and shields. We focused on making things hit other things really, really hard." The alien fleet tried to adapt, but they were facing something unprecedented. Human ships didn't follow any known tactical doctrine. Instead of staying in formation, they scattered like a pack of wolves. Instead of targeting the largest enemy ships first, they focused on disrupting alien communications and command structures. Worst of all, human ships kept fighting, even after taking damage that should have destroyed them. Dr. Amy Carter, now serving, as a tactical analyst, explained it to the alien admiral during a brief communication lull. "Admiral Vextar, your ships are built for elegant warfare between civilized species. Our ships are built by a species that learned warfare by fighting each other in the most brutal conflicts imaginable. We don't build ships to win clean victories. We build them to keep fighting until the enemy stops moving." The turning point came when Captain Morrison implemented what the humans called the Polish solution. His squadron of mining ships, heavily modified with additional engines, began accelerating directly toward the alien flagship. "What are they doing?" Vextar asked, his voice showing the first signs of real concern. "They're going to ram you," Colonel Nash said, matter-of-factly. "At about 15% of light speed. That's suicide." "Maybe, but your ship will definitely be destroyed." Yeah. And Jake's crew all volunteered for this mission. The alien fleet scattered as Morrison's ships bore down on them, but the humans had anticipated this. Other squadrons were positioned to take advantage of the broken alien formation. The battle that followed would be studied by military historians for generations. Human ships used tactics that no civilized species would consider. They rammed enemy vessels. They detonated nuclear weapons at point-blank range, sacrificing themselves to take out larger alien ships. They used their own damaged vessels as guided missiles, most disturbing to the aliens. Human crews seemed to consider these suicidal tactics as normal parts of warfare. Admiral Vextar found his flagship surrounded by smaller human vessels. They weren't trying to destroy his ship. They were preparing to board it. "This is impossible," he said to his crew. "No species attempts boarding actions in modern space warfare." Colonel Nash's voice came through their communication system. "Admiral, you're about to learn something about humans that might help you. Understand why 16 other species surrendered to you, but we didn't." "And what is that?" "We're very good at fighting in small spaces with improvised weapons. It's something we've been practicing since we lived in caves." The airlocks on Vextar's ship exploded inward as human soldiers in powered armor began cutting their way inside. Zephyrian crew, who hadn't engaged in hand-to-hand combat in centuries, found themselves facing humans who had been training for close-quarters fighting since childhood. The battle was over in less than an hour. Not because the human fleet had destroyed the alien ships, but because they had captured them. Every alien vessel in the fleet was now under human control, their crews taken prisoner. Admiral Vextar sat in the Liberty's detention cell, trying to understand what had happened. Admiral White came to visit him personally. "How?" he asked simply. "Admiral, your empire conquered 16 species by offering them a choice between surrender and extinction. But you made a mistake with humans." "Mistake? You assumed that extinction was the worst thing that could happen to us. For humans, there are things worse than death. Slavery is one of them. So when you offered us that choice, there really was no choice at all." Vextar looked up at her with his 3 eyes. "Out. Your species is insane." Susan smiled. "Maybe, but we're also free. And now we need to talk about something important." "What? You mentioned that your empire has been fleeing from something worse than yourselves? We think it's time you've told us what that something is." 6 weeks after the first battle, Admiral Susan White sat across from Admiral Vextar in the conference room aboard the Liberty. The alien no longer wore the arrogant expression he had shown during their first meeting. Instead, he looked tired and worried. "The Devourers," Vextar said quietly, "are not like any species you have encountered. They do not conquer. They consume. Entire worlds, entire civilizations, everything." General Rick Barnes, who had arrived from Earth 2 days earlier, leaned forward. "How long have they been chasing your empire?" 300 years, Vextar replied. "They destroyed our homeworld, consumed our colonies. We have been running ever since, conquering other species to build an army large enough to face them." Dr. Amy Carter, now serving as humanity's chief xenobiologist, studied the alien data files on her tablet. According to this information, the Devourers are a hive mind. Billions of creatures controlled by a single consciousness. "That is correct," Vextar said. "They strip planets bare of all life, then move on to the next world. In 3 centuries, they have consumed over 200 civilizations." Colonel Pete Nash looked up from his tactical analysis. Why didn't you just tell us this from the beginning? Humans would have helped you fight them. Vextar's 3 eyes showed confusion. Help? Why would you help us? We came to conquer you. Danny Kim, who was working on alien technology integration, stopped his work to answer. Because that's what humans do. When someone needs help fighting monsters, we help them fight monsters. It doesn't matter if we were enemies 5 minutes ago. The conversation was interrupted when Captain Jake Morrison entered the room. Admiral White, we've got a problem. Our deep space sensors are picking up massive energy signatures at the edge of the galaxy. Something big is coming this way. Dr. Carter checked her instruments.
Right.
Get Jake's right. The energy readings match the Devourer. Signatures from the alien database, they're about 3 months away at current speed. General Barnes stood up. 3 months to prepare for a threat that destroyed an entire galactic empire. Admiral White, what are our options? Susan looked around the table at both humans and the alien admiral. We fight them. All of us together. Possible, Vexter said. The Devourers number in the trillions. Your entire species has less than 10 billion individuals. Danny Kim grinned. Admiral Vextar, you're still thinking like someone who fights clean wars? Humans don't fight clean wars. We fight to win, no matter what it takes. Over the following weeks, something unprecedented happened in galactic history. Human engineers worked alongside alien technicians to combine technologies that had never been used together. Danny Kim's team discovered that Zephyrian energy shields could be powered by human nuclear reactors, creating defensive systems stronger than either species had achieved alone. Colonel Nash established training programs where human soldiers taught close-quarters combat to alien warriors, while alien officers shared their knowledge of large-scale space tactics with human commanders. The breakthrough came when Dr. Carter made a discovery that changed everything. She was studying Devourer biology when she found something unusual in their genetic code. General Barnes, she called excitedly from her laboratory. I need you to see this immediately. Barnes arrived with Admiral White and Admiral Vextar. Dr. Carter's screens showed complex genetic sequences and biological data. The Devourers aren't just a hive mind, she explained.
Oh.
They're artificially created. Someone made them, probably as a weapon. But here's the important part. They have a critical weakness. What kind of weakness? Admiral White asked. Their hive mind depends on a central consciousness that coordinates all the individual creatures. It's like a computer network, with a single server controlling everything. If we can destroy that central consciousness, the entire hive becomes just mindless animals. Vextar leaned forward. Where is this central consciousness located? According to the genetic markers, it's in the largest bioship at the center of their fleet. A massive creature that serves as both command center and breeding facility. Danny Kim was already working on his tablet. How heavily defended would this central ship be? Completely surrounded by the entire Devourer fleet, Dr. Carter replied. Millions of bioships protecting the core consciousness, Colonel Nash smiled grimly. So we need to fight through millions of enemy ships to reach a single target. Sounds like every mission humans have ever planned. Admiral White looked at the tactical data. Can it be done? Not with conventional tactics, General Barnes admitted. But humans don't use conventional tactics. Captain Morrison, who had been quietly studying the information, spoke up. Admiral, what if we don't try to fight through their fleet? If we go around it, explain. The Devourers expect us to meet them in space combat. They've probably never faced an enemy that would try a different approach. What if we let them come to us, then hit their command ship when they're spread out attacking our positions? Danny Kim's eyes lit up. A Trojan horse strategy. We let them think they're winning, then strike at their heart when they're not expecting it. Admiral Vextar looked amazed. You would sacrifice your own worlds to create an opportunity for attack? If necessary, Admiral White said without hesitation. That's the difference between humans and every other species you've met. We'll sacrifice anything to protect what we love. The plan that emerged over the next several days was audacious even by human standards. They would evacuate Earth's population to hidden colonies, then turn the entire solar system into a trap. When the Devourers arrived to consume humanity's home world, They would find themselves facing defenses unlike anything they had encountered in 3 centuries of conquest. But the real attack would come from an unexpected direction: a small fleet. Of the fastest ships, crewed by volunteers, would use the chaos of the main battle to penetrate the Devourer formation and destroy their central consciousness. "It's suicide," Vexstar said when he heard the complete plan. "Maybe," Colonel Nash replied. "But if it works, we save not just humanity and your empire, but every species in the galaxy. And if it fails," Captain Morrison answered for all of them, "then at least we'll make sure the Devourers remember what happens when they threaten human beings." As the Devourer fleet approached the outer edge of the solar system, humanity prepared for the most important battle in galactic history. They had turned their greatest weakness, their willingness to sacrifice everything for their principles, into their greatest weapon. Admiral Vexstar, now working closely with human commanders, sent a final message to his surviving people scattered across the galaxy. The message was simple: we found allies. Strange, impossible allies who fight like demons and show mercy like angels. If we survive this, the galaxy will never be the same. The Devourer fleet arrived at Earth like a plague of locusts. Millions of bioships, each one a living creature bred for destruction, swarmed toward the blue planet. At the center of the massive formation, a creature the size of a moon pulsed, with the collective consciousness that controlled them all. Admiral Susan White watched from her command ship hidden behind Jupiter. The evacuation of Earth had been completed 2 weeks ago. Every human civilian was now safely hidden in colonies. Throughout the outer solar system, what the Devourers would find on Earth was something entirely different. Admiral Colonel Pete Nash reported from the surface, "All ground defenses are ready. Every major city has been converted into a fortress. We're as ready as we'll ever be." Captain Jake Morrison's voice came through the communication system from his position near Mars. "Strike fleet is in position, Admiral. We're ready to move on your signal." The first wave of Devourer bioships reached Earth's atmosphere, expected to find a helpless planet full of prey. Instead, they encountered the most heavily defended world in galactic history. Nuclear missiles launched from hidden silos across every continent. Orbital defense platforms that had been disguised as space debris activated and opened fire. Surprising of all, planet's cities themselves began fighting back. Danny Kim's engineering teams had spent 2 months turning Earth into a weapon. Skyscrapers had been converted into massive railgun batteries. Subway systems had become underground missile launchers. Even the ocean floors held surprises: nuclear submarines, modified to surface and fire anti-ship weapons. The Devourers had never encountered anything like it. In 3 centuries of conquest, they had always faced civilizations that tried to protect their people by hiding them or evacuating them. Humans had evacuated their people, then turned their entire planet into a giant trap. "First phase is working," General Rick Barnes reported from his command bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains. Devourers are focusing all their attention on Earth. Their formation is spreading out just like we predicted. Admiral Vexstar, now serving as an advisor to the human fleet, watched the battle with amazement.
"Oh, your species is insane,"
he said to Dr. Amy Carter, who was monitoring Devourer behavior patterns. "You turned your own homeworld into bait." "That's the thing about humans," Dr. Carter replied calmly. "We'll sacrifice anything to protect our people, including our planet." The real battle began when Colonel Nash activated the second phase of the defense. Hidden bases across Earth's surface opened up, revealing something the Devourers had never seen before. Human soldiers in powered armor began pouring out of underground complexes, ready to fight the invading creatures hand to hand. The bioships landed, expecting easy prey. Instead, they found themselves facing soldiers who had been training for exactly this kind of fight their entire lives. Humans had been perfecting close-quarters combat for thousands of years. The Devourers discovered that their individual creatures, separated from the main hive mind by the chaos of battle, were no match for human infantry. "Phase 3, Admiral," Captain Morrison called. "The enemy command ship is exactly where we predicted. beginning final approach. Morrison's strike fleet consisted of the fastest ships humanity had ever built, crewed entirely by volunteers. Their mission was simple: reach the central consciousness and destroy it, no matter the cost. The journey through the Devourer formation was a nightmare of living ships and biological weapons. Morrison's fleet lost half its ships in the first 10 minutes. But the survivors kept going, using the same tactics that had defeated Admiral fleet months earlier. Human ships rammed bioships that got in their way. They detonated nuclear weapons at close range, sacrificing themselves to clear paths for their companions. They used damaged vessels as guided missiles, aiming for the largest enemy creatures. "Jake," Admiral White called over the communication. "System, you're taking heavy losses." Admiral Morrison replied, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "My orders are to reach that command ship. I'm going to reach that command ship." The final assault came down to Morrison's ship and two others. They had fought their way through millions of enemy creatures to reach the massive bioship that housed the Devourer hive mind. Danny Kim's voice came through from the engine room. "Captain, I've got one shot with the black hole generator, but we'll have to get close enough to touch that thing." "Do it," Morrison said without hesitation. The weapon Danny Kim had created was something that only humans would consider building. An artificial black hole generator designed to tear apart matter at the atomic level. It was unstable, dangerous, and absolutely guaranteed to destroy anything near it, including the ship that fired it. Morrison's ship accelerated toward the command. Creature as defensive bioships swarmed around them. The hull began breaking apart under enemy fire, but the engines kept pushing them forward. "For humanity," Morrison said quietly as he fired the weapon. The artificial black hole tore through the command creature like it was made of paper. The massive bioship collapsed in on itself, taking the central consciousness with it. Across the entire Devourer fleet, millions of bioships suddenly stopped moving. Without their controlling intelligence, they became nothing more than mindless animals floating in space. Admiral White watched from her hiding place as the greatest threat in Galactic history died in a matter of minutes. "All units, begin cleanup operations. The war is over." 6 months later, Admiral Vextar stood before the Galactic Council, representing not just his own species but 17 others that had suffered under Devourer attacks for centuries. "Honorable Counselors," he began, "I come before you to speak of a species that has changed the galaxy forever. When the Zephyrian Empire first encountered humans, we thought they were weak, divided, primitive. We offered them the same choice we had given 16 other species: surrender or die." The council chambers were silent as Vextar continued. "We were wrong about everything. Humans don't surrender. They don't run. They don't hide. When faced with extinction, they become something that no other species in the galaxy has ever been." "And what is that?" asked the council speaker. "Unbeatable. They turned their planet into a weapon. They sacrificed their ships to clear paths for their companions. They built a device that could destroy matter itself and used it to save not just themselves, but every species in the galaxy." Vextar paused, looking around the chamber at representatives from dozens of different worlds. "The Devourers are gone. The greatest threat our galaxy has ever known was destroyed by a species that was still confined to a single solar system just 1 year ago. And now, these same humans are offering their protection to any species that needs it." The council speaker leaned forward. "What do they want in return?" "Nothing," Vextar replied. "They want nothing except the knowledge that they've made the galaxy safer for everyone. I have studied 17 different civilizations, and I can tell you that humans are unique in the universe." "How so?" Admiral Vextar smiled. Something his species had learned to do from watching humans. "They're the only species that fights. Not to conquer, but to protect. Not for themselves, but for others. They don't want to rule the galaxy. They want to save it." As Vextar's testimony ended, reports were already coming in from across the galaxy. Human ships were arriving at worlds threatened by pirates, offering assistance. Human engineers were sharing their technology freely with any species that asked. Human soldiers were training other militaries to defend themselves. The species that had once been trapped in a single solar system had become the galaxy's protector, not through conquest, but through the simple demonstration that some fights were worth having no matter what they cost. Dr. Amy Carter, now serving as humanity's first galactic ambassador, received the final message of the day from Earth. President Karen Hayes had been re-elected unanimously, running on a platform of continued galactic cooperation and defense. The message was simple. Congratulations, aliens. You just declared war on the one species in the galaxy that never learned how to quit, and now we're all safer because of it?